what's in your bag? And I was like, well, it's a BAFTA. You've won a BAFTA! Oh my God, Abby, she's got a BAFTA. Can we take a photo with it? Like the whole, I was like, who am I without magic?
I don't know anything about you.
I need you to hear me.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Our dance will never end.
You did my crew a solid today.
Enough messing around.
My home, David.
Cissy Jones!
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. So just doing all we're incredible dancers, you know.
Yeah,
we're not
it's true.
voice acting. We are just
Cutting a rug.
doing choreo. So, how are you today?
I am good. I am, figuring out what day it is.
Yeah, the summer's always challenging because
Summers
it's
are
just
weird.
like one big blur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
I love the show. It's been so fun to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking it out. I'm trying to think how long I've known you for.
I mean, I met you when I first moved to town
Yeah, when was that?
12 years ago.
Wow. Okay, so
So-
more than a decade.
Yeah.
And we were doing Voxy
Oh
Ladies.
my God.
Voxy Ladies.
That was another lifetime ago. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Met a lot of great women during that
Yeah.
time, though.
You did some sock puppet theater. It was real
Sock
great.
Puppet theater. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we did a little bit of that. That was a pretty fun show.
was really
For
cute.
anybody that doesn't remember, which is 99.99% of this audience, we used to do a live show that some friends of mine produced called Sock Puppet Sitcom Theater. And it was just as it sounds, sock puppets doing sitcoms, usually the pilot, like Friends and the Golden Girls and stuff like that.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun. It was a good introduction to Los Angeles for me. I was like, oh, people are creative here. Neat.
Because you originally lived in the Bay Area.
I
Well, you
did.
grew up in Idaho, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then you moved to the Bay Area.
After college, yeah. So I went to college in Oregon and then moved to the Bay Area and lived there for 10 years where I toiled away in technology, the tech industry for too long and became an actor because that's what you do.
So now I heard you say in another interview like that voice acting was the dream,
Always.
but then
But I didn't
Silicon
know
Valley
it was
got in the
called
way.
that. I didn't know it was called voice acting. I
Mhm.
remember telling my dad when I was like 6, I was like, I want to be an actor. And he was like, no, you don't. No, you want to get a business degree and you want to do the finance. And I was like, okay. So I got the business degree and the Spanish degree and I worked in tech and I met some really great people.
Yeah.
But I hated it.
Yeah.
It was not my jam. So just through like amazing happenstance, I found a voiceover school and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do forever and ever.
And that was eventually how you started kind of making connections in Los Angeles, right?
Mhm.
Was through different casting directors and directors that would come through that school.
Yep.
Did you
agents.
teach there, or did you become a bigger part of that school?
No, I did start teaching at another school called Voice One in San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's how I met pretty much enough people who were stationed here to give me the confidence to be like, okay, I could actually make a run of this, because I think there's a misconception among people who think, oh, it's just talking. I can talk, I can be a voice actor. And
Yeah.
there's actually a lot more that goes into it. And listen, it's not digging ditches, right? Like we're not doing backbreaking work all day, but there is something to be said for learning the skill and learning how to be an actor without the luxury of body language and facial expressions, right?
Mhm.
And so I did classes for a couple of years and I got good feedback consistently enough and people telling me consistently enough, you could make a run of it in LA to be like, I'm going to make a run of it in LA. And then, yeah.
Now, were you married at the time, or
No, I was with my partner and
and you were able to get him to
I was
pack
like,
up and
"Hey,
move too? Because
I know you married me thinking I was going to have a steady paycheck. Sucker. No, we got married shortly before we moved here. Yeah.
Got it. So he
Yeah.
was on board for following the
He
dream.
was. He actually
That's cool.
encouraged me. He, I was having a rough patch in the Silicon Valley and trying to figure out what to do with my professional life because I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if I could afford to not have a job while pursuing voiceover. And he was
Yeah.
like, "You love this and you're good at it. Why would you do anything else?" And so because of him, I pursued it. And then I got an agent in Los Angeles, and at the time, you know, we didn't have any responsibilities. We didn't have a mortgage. We didn't have kids. We didn't have anything. And he was like, we should go to LA. And I was like, okay. So yeah.
Wow, that must have
Yeah.
been such an exciting time.
It was. And luckily I didn't suck at my job.
Yeah.
So it made it worth it. Yeah.
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 And you know, right out of the gate, you know, you scored some really great jobs.
I did.
Of course, starting with Walking Dead. What was that like? What was the casting call like that for that?
I mean, it's, you know, it's like how any casting job is. It's you get a packet of characters and they say, pick the ones you think you're good for. And it was, you know, 26 women or something like that. And, you know, I auditioned for Clementine. I auditioned for Lily. And
I kind of want to hear your Clem voice.
it's not nearly as good as Melissa's. She's the queen forever. But yeah, I booked the role of Katya. And man, that game not only like kicked open the door for me to realize that like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I can hold my own in this career, but also it was just lightning in a bottle. You know, everything about it, the people that were involved, from the actors to the writers to the developers. It was such a beautiful entrance into this.
Were you
crazy world.
familiar with the franchise before?
I mean, I knew what it was, but I have a hard time watching horror because I dream later that I'm stuck in it. I have an overactive imagination. What? I'm an actor. Yeah. So it was wonderful. And then through that is how I met Sean Vanneman and Jake Rodkin, who then left Telltale and went on to start Camposanto and wrote Firewatch. And they reached out to me and they were like, we like you. We're making a new game with a female protagonist. Want to work with us again? And I was like,
oh my God.
okay. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what feelings were going through your mind when you got that call?
I mean, I was elated because we don't get direct calls, right? It's always like,
it's even more rare now, I
yeah,
think. But yeah.
Here's an audition. Good luck. And if you hear back, maybe you did good. And if you don't hear back, oh well.
You'll never know
Yeah,
how far you got.
But it was also like he reached out to me and he said, you know, this is what's happening. We want you to work with us. And I was like, yes, I'm in. And then I didn't hear from him for like 18 months. And I was like, did I lose the job? What have I done? Because I'd just recently been recast on a thing because I didn't have enough Twitter followers. And I was like, oh my God, am I getting recast again? Do I need to buy Twitter followers? You know. And then he reached back out again and he was like, hey, sorry, we've just actually been writing the thing. And I was like, oh, thank God.
Right. And that is such a process, right?
Yeah.
As they're producing and writing and going through those pre-production stages.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because Firewatch was like, if you stopped and checked out every single thing, it's at most like a 6-hour game. And it took us 2
I
years.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
It took us 2 years to do the recording. And it wasn't every day.
How many sessions would you say?
Maybe 15 to 20.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of talking.
Dialogue.
Yeah, yeah. But it was a hell of an experience. Yeah.
Did you get the script in advance, or were you pretty much working on a day-to-day basis?
Day to day. It was day to day. And the thing about that game in particular was that if the conversations didn't land, we had to rewrite. You know, or not we, Sean had to rewrite. And there was a lot
Then
of
they hired me to write.
I know, and then I was a writer. But it was a lot of adjusting on the fly. And, you know, it's one thing to be by yourself reading a conversation and think, okay, I'll hit this one that way and then I'll da-da-da-da. But when you're actually in the conversation and your partner does something completely unexpected, you do something completely unexpected. So there's also that, like, I didn't want to over prepare it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to walk in and enjoy it in the moment and not be thinking so much about like, my choice was this, you know.
Yeah. Be in the moment.
We have a tendency to overthink.
And you had a kind of a different process for recording that game, yeah?
Yes, we got to do an ensemble record, which meant
cool.
I was in my home studio and Rich Summer, who played my co-star, was in his home studio, and our director Skyped us in and we actually recorded it as a conversation, which was amazing. And this was before pandemic. You know, not everybody had a home studio, and in voiceover especially, we never get to do ensemble records. It's so rare.
Not for games.
Not for games. And so
I don't think I've ever.
The only other one I had done for a game was with Maurice LaMarche for Batman.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it was
fun.
It was just a transformative experience. And I learned so much from hearing Rich work. Like, he's such an incredible actor, and he's you know, he's trained and he has all the degrees and all the things, and he's, you know, worked in Broadway, and then he was on Mad Men, and, you know, he's like this incredible, and I'm like, I've been doing this for 3 years. I learned so much from watching him work. It was really incredible.
And then it ended up paying off big time.
Did. Yeah.
So tell me about like when you were first found out you were nominated for a BAFTA. Did you even know that that was like a possibility, or was that just a complete surprise?
Well, they told me, you know, Sean had told me that they were going to submit the game for some stuff, and I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, that's neat. And then I woke up one morning and I had like just a flurry of text messages. Oh my God, congratulations, Karen. And I was like, what is happening? What's going on? I was like, what do you mean? And somebody sent me the screenshot, and I was like, oh my God. Like my head just went.
Wow.
It was a spectacular honor. And then, you know, leading up throughout the award season, we were released at the same time as Uncharted 4, which was the finale in this beautiful game series that Naughty Dog had been doing. And Nolan North, who's just an insanely talented actor,
Yeah.
Who had carried this character through 4 installments, had been winning everything, and rightfully so. He's incredible. And so I was super happy to just be nominated, and I thought that was that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if you watch the replay, they don't actually show my reaction when they announce my name, because I screamed "holy shit" at the top of my lungs, which is maybe not the most British way to accept a thing. So yeah,
Holy shit!
holy shit! I think I jumped 20 feet in the air. I did not expect it at all.
And were you like ready to go? Did you have your whole speech? I mean, it seemed very polished.
I mean, I knew the things I wanted to say, but I was like, just don't cry. Just don't cry. I'm a crier. Yeah, no,
Happy
it was
things
wild.
Or sometimes, yeah, make me cry too.
Yeah, it was bananas.
Wow. And so after you came home with a BAFTA, by the way, is that something you like actually get to physically take home, or you have to like, oh wow.
No,
So
and
it's
that
like
sucker's
you packed
heavy.
it in your suitcase.
I was like, oh God.
Like suddenly they're like,
No, you
you're gonna
couldn't
have to
pack it
pay.
in your suitcase because it would put it overweight, and it could be used as a bludgeoning tool.
Oh.
So I had to carry it. And then like I was going through the line at Heathrow, and they were like, "Ma'am, you need to step aside." I was like, "What?" They're like, what's in your bag? And I was like, well, it's a BAFTA. You've won a BAFTA. Oh my God, Abby, she's got a BAFTA. Can we take a photo with it? Like I was like, okay, thank you. It was very surreal.
First, they just thought it was some creepy mask.
I know. They're like, okay, American, what's your deal?
What's your
Yeah,
deal?
it was wild.
Wow. So do you have a copy of that picture with all the security?
No.
Someone somewhere. Internet, do your thing.
Right.
See if we can track that down.
Find Abby at Heathrow.
Abby at Heathrow.
She's got a BAFTA. It was so funny.
So do you feel like that was a changing point in your career?
It was a validation for me. You know, the thing about what we do is that, like I said, we don't often get direct offers, right? Even with something like that, which has been defining in so many ways, but I still audition for everything I do, right?
I remember asking Melissa Disney that when I was coaching with her and I was getting started. I said, "Do they just call you and like be like, hey, do this?" She's like, "No, I still audition." I was like, "Damn it."
Yeah. But it was a good validation. You know, not only had I moved myself and my family here to chase this crazy dream, but I had a lot of people along the way that told me I was crazy and I would never be able to make it happen. You know,
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, it was that moment of like, I did this, and no one gets to take that away from me. You know.
So, what would you say to somebody that's in a similar situation where they have a little dream in their heart, but they're not sure if they're any good, and they don't maybe have support from others in their life? What would you say to them? What advice would you give?
Oh man, I mean, the first thing is we are always our own worst critics, right?
Yeah.
And if you can find a way to stop that little voice in your head and tell it to back off, that's worth $1 million. And if you figure that out, tell me how. But you know, I think if you know in the depths of your soul that you are on the path you were meant to be here on, I have always found in my life be it in relationships or in career or anything else, that when I am going down the wrong path, right? If I'm doing something that I was not put here to do, I keep running up against these like steel walls, you know, and like just impassable obstacles. Again, relationships or professional or whatever. And when it's right, I always say it comes together like a zipper, right? It just works. And I spent a long time in the Silicon Valley in tech trying to be the square peg in a round hole and knowing in my soul that it was not what I was meant to be doing. And when I found voiceover, it was like my vision clicked. You know what I mean? And I knew this was it. I knew this was it, and there was nobody that was going to stop me from doing it. And they tried. There were people that tried, but thank you for the motivation to keep going.
What does that look like? Someone standing in your way? Like, is that somebody? Is it like a coach or a teacher or somebody saying, or is it? Yeah.
I had somebody tell me very early on that I didn't have an acting background. I don't have an acting background. I have a business degree and a Spanish degree. And that person told me that I was never going to make it. I was never going to be good enough to work in animation. Yeah. And it messed with me for a long time. It did. It messed with me for a long time. Anytime I would get an animation audition, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm paralyzed by fear. Video games, it just comes together like a beautiful mind. I'm like, oh, this and that. And then animation, I'd be like, and then this little show called The Owl House came along.
Yeah, let's talk about The Owl House. Wow. So, I mean, the show serialized is so like, there's just so much to it. And like, it's got such an interesting tone. It's super funny, but it's also
dark.
It's goth. Yeah. It's
like low-key PG-13. Like, yeah. It's a kid's show.
Which, by the way, you know, the kids, I mean, I only have one child, so I can only say, when I say the kids, I speak.
And I can't, the
from my test group of one. That's like the Gravity Falls and Owl House. They love that kind of dark stuff.
You know what I think
it would freak me out as a kid.
It probably would have freaked me out too. Again, nightmares.
Yeah.
But I think it doesn't pander and it doesn't condescend to children. It actually treats them like they are curious, capable, conscious beings who are interested in good storytelling, which I love. I have always loved it about that show. I loved it about Gravity Falls. You know, there's something to be said for not underestimating your audience. And that's what Dana Terrace is just a genius. I think she did such a beautiful job with that show.
Did you know it was Dana's project when you auditioned? Were you familiar with any of her other work?
I wasn't familiar with any of her work, but I had a friend who worked at Disney, and when I had the call back, she DM'd me on Facebook. We were in like a Facebook group and whatever. And she DM'd me and she's like, hey, I'm going to be in the room. You're going to be there with the creator and this, and that person from Disney and this. And I was like, neat. Okay.
So like a physical in-person callback.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this was 2016.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, but yeah, just the second I got that script, I was like, oh my God, this is a dream project. It's a dream project.
Yeah. Well, and you also, you know, like your tagline online is like a real life witch. So talk about that. Is that like some kind of like, is that just more like an energy work thing or?
I am a firm believer that the feminine conscious has been hiding itself for a very long time and is coming back online. I feel like women have been finding groups of each other and building each other up rather than tearing each other down. And if that makes me a witch, so be it. I'm here for it.
So yeah, I mean, feminine empowerment, there's like a lot to be said about bringing women together. And but do you think like the idea of like Lilith and like that feeling like the witchy sort of vibes, do you think that played into kind of being able to connect to the role?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because the funny thing is when I first got the audition, she was just a villain.
Oh.
There was no, if you haven't watched, turn it off. Spoiler alerts. There was no redemption arc in the sides. It was just she was the bad guy. She was Ida's wicked sister, and she turned into a bat and chased Ida down a hole. totally different than what went to air. But I just, because where my voice sits, I always tend to get villains.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was just meaty and fun and delicious. And so I think it was less to do with like, she's a witch than this magical world and, sibling rivalry. Not that I don't love my brother. I love you, brother. And, mom always loved you more and, stuff like that. It was, it was such a beautiful thing to chomp into.
And something that I think, everybody can relate to, especially kids, because it's so prevalent in their lives and in their relationships with their siblings. And that show went on to touch and affect so many different people. Were you surprised at the fan base that developed around it?
I have never been a part of anything like that. I've been in games that were popular, The Walking Dead and Destiny and Firewatch for what it was, and massive AAAs, Call of Duty, and I had seen like blips of like, oh, this is neat. Oh my God, you're the voice actor for the thing. Okay, hi. And that one it just exploded, and it felt like it was overnight. We were in the pandemic when it came out. I think it was April of 2020.
We were? Wow.
Yeah, or maybe June or something like that.
Okay.
And
yeah.
so it was like square in the middle of the pandemic, which also meant that everybody was online, so there wasn't the like ability to get together.
Yeah.
So which meant, number one, people were watching and then talking with their online circles. But number two, we didn't get to do a press tour.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I think Dana showed it at Annecy
Mhm.
the year before, and then they did New York Comic Con before it had come out, 2019, I think.
Mhm. But you didn't get to be there for any of that.
No, and why would I? I wasn't announced. I was a secondary character, and then it came out, and it was such an incredible thing. As the story went on, and you learn more and more about the characters and their orientations and their how they identify, and everything that made them different and weird and unique and beautiful. People online were like, oh my God, that's me. I'm a Dominican bisexual girl, or I'm a non-binary person of Latin descent, or I'm a, asexual witch. It just, people found themselves more and more in it. And then as these characters just exploded into people's hearts, it was so magical to hear from people like, this show saved my life. People have DM'd me and said, this show saved my life. And I'm like, wow, it's a cartoon. That's amazing. We get to be a part of something like that. It's so incredible.
I really love how you've built such a community around the Owl House too. You had I don't know if you're still doing it, but a streaming show that you were doing.
Yeah, the post-hoot. Yeah. So we started that because there was very little in terms of promotion happening, and people were asking me like, I want to be an animator, I want to be a storyboard artist, how do I do it? And I was like, I don't know. And so I was talking with Sarah Nicole Robles, who's the voice of the main character, and I was like, what if we just interview people? What if we have them on and ask them these questions? Because I don't know how to do, you don't know how to do it. And so we did, and it was so great. People have been so welcoming to it, and it's been so much fun. And with the show just wrapped, unfortunately, we had our series finale, and we had the creator on for the last post-hoot, and we were like, if you guys want to continue to see these, let us know. And people have been like, yes, please come back. So we're trying to figure out how to do that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's been really cool.
And even with like the Streamly signings and getting the other voice actors together and creating a space where fans can come and join.
Yeah, it's been neat. And everybody, for the most part, has been so supportive and kind and welcoming. And if there have been people who aren't, like, they kind of get welcomed in and like, like, hey, this is not the time and place. And it's been really incredible to watch it. Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a lot of controversy around the Owl House getting canceled, and pretty devastating, and seems very surprising. Were you shocked when you heard that news?
I was devastated. I am devastated. I don't think I'll ever get over it. But that's business.
And Dana
know.
was expecting to go longer, I believe, from what I read.
I mean, they found out in the middle of writing season 2 that it had been shortened, I think, in season 2 or the end of season 1. So she knew it was coming, but she also has said publicly that, like, listen, this gave me the motivation I needed to finish the story that I wanted to tell and not leave it on a cliffhanger and not be ambiguous about things. Like, I am going to make this the best goddamn show I can make it in the limited amount of time that I have. And I think she fucking stuck the landing, pardon my French. I'm so endlessly proud of what her and that team did.
Yeah. So have you guys, I mean, after working with her for so long, not so long, but a few years, did you find that it shifted kind of how you felt about production?
It's interesting because it's given me an insight into production that I didn't understand. And, working within a massive corporation, which is we show up at the very last minute and we're dancing monkeys and someone gives us the words and we dance them out and then we go about our merry way.
It's back to our dance.
Right?
It's
Here
back
we
to our
are,
dance.
back again. But hearing from her and from the people that we've had on the show about, how long they've worked on these things and how much of their hearts they poured into them and the conversations that had to happen around standards and practices. And Alex Hirsch has released a bunch of the like emails that he had with S&P about what could and could not be involved in Gravity Falls, and it's just a whole different.
And they got away with some stuff.
Holy crap, did they? But it's there's a lot of idealism from all of us who don't have that experience to be like, I'm going to make a show and it's going to be this and then that and then boom. And that's never the way it goes.
Yeah. So what do you think about a Lilith spinoff?
Oh my God. Get any spinoff. Like, I don't care if it's Lilith or Gus or, I don't know, the Palismans. I want to see like a day in the life of the Palismans. Any Owl House content I can get forever, I will be happy with. But who knows?
And so, I mean, so it seems like, you're keeping so busy with voicing for video games as well as animation. You used to do a lot of commercials. Do you still have time to do commercials?
Well, commercials have kind of dried up. I don't know if you've experienced it, but it's either gone like super hyper mega celebrity or like super hyper mega low budget.
It's a weird time.
It's a very weird time. And then of course, AI is coming in and that's changing the landscape as well. So it's things have definitely changed.
You're very active with NAVA, the National Association for Voice Actors.
Yes.
And Tim Friedlander was on a couple weeks ago talking about, he mentioned you, of course, and the synthetic voice writer and all that you guys are doing to hopefully advocate for voice actors within this wave of evolution with AI voices. It seems like
it's been a lot.
Yeah, but there's been some wins lately.
There have been some wins. So, I think, I'm sure Tim said it multiple times when he was on your show, but I will reiterate, we're not anti-technology. We are pro voice actor. We are pro creator. And there are a lot of potential pitfalls if we don't have a framework in place. And, legislation is woefully behind the technology. It's been really scary. And, a couple of years ago, I noticed that Lilith from the Owl House had been uploaded to a couple of AI sites and people were making like fan dubs mostly, which is one thing. But it can lead to so much more and it gets really scary really fast.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And I don't have control over that character because even though it's my voice, I don't own the character. Disney owns the character.
Meaning you have no legal right to cease and desist.
Yes, your voice is not a copyrightable piece of biometric data. So that's another thing we're working on changing. But yeah, so I started a group of people a couple of years ago to start talking about like how can we exist ethically with AI? How can we work with AI? In voiceover and how can we make it something that works for all of us and doesn't completely strip us of our income. And Tim came on board, thank God, and Karin Gilfrey, who's his co-founder of NAVA, and then they offered to put us underneath the NAVA umbrella. NAVA's a nonprofit, they have an attorney, they have a wider reach than we had. And it has been incredible. It's been so busy and so fruitful. Just the conversations that we've been having and the problems we've been able to identify, and also the challenges we've been able to meet. You know, it's an incredible group of people. And so basically what we have been spending 10 to 20 calls a week doing is educating people on what to look out for in contracts, because there's a lot of predatory companies who are reaching out to actors or casting on pay-to-play sites and, you know, offering a crappy buyout, a one-time buyout to turn your voice into an AI, and that's it. And then bye, we don't need you anymore. And so we're trying to educate people on, like, read your contracts, know what you're signing. Nobody likes reading contracts. It sucks. I'm the first to admit it. I hate it. I will fall asleep. It's great nighttime reading. But if we just blindly sign things, we're giving away the farm. I mean, that's it. That's game over, right? And I have been so guilty of blindly signing in the last 10 years because you think, oh, the union's got it. But they don't. I mean, they do, but the problem is that companies are slipping language into a union contract that has not been collectively bargained, has not been ratified through the union. So I had a contract from a massive corporation, and on page 7 of 24, there was just a little tiny clause in there that said, we reserve the right to take your recording sessions and feed them to machine learning, which means my session for this animated thing could have been used to create a digital version of me, and bye.
Was this in the past, or this was something you
This was
realized
6 months ago. This was 6 months
After
ago.
you realized after?
I read it, and then I was like, oh, this is not great. And then luckily it was a union project, so we can send that contract to the union, and the union will go to the company and say,
That's
can't
not,
do that.
Yeah.
But they're still doing it because they're trying to get it to become boilerplate. They're trying to get it so that it just becomes standard. So that's where people like you and me and any other person, union or not, that's where we get a say. We get to say, I'm not signing that. I will not have that in my contract. You may not make a digital version of me. And it's a lot.
Have you gone to like 11 Labs and made your own digital version?
No, I won't. 11 has a version of me, but I did not upload it. I asked them to take it down and they refused. UberDuck had a version of me. I asked them to take it down and they complied.
Wow, I've never looked. I should probably check.
Yeah, it's anybody. I mean, people can take your outgoing voicemail message and use it to make a version.
It's crazy just to hear people using some of the software and crazy how good it sounds.
Yeah. So on that note, I, you know, through NAVA and the Vocal Variants, this is the group that I've been working with, we posted our framework online on the NAVA webpage for what we wanted to see in AI contracts moving forward. Again, not anti-technology, just anti-theft.
AI meaning voiceover jobs for AI, or just all voiceover jobs to
voiceover jobs for
clarify,
AI, but also, you know, if we are going to exist in a world where artificial intelligence has the ability to turn our voice into a digital version of ourselves, here's what we need to see.
Yeah.
Number one, consent. You know, you can't just bury something in a contract and have me sign the bottom of it and be like, well, you consented.
Right.
You didn't get my active consent.
Yeah.
You need to call it out and say, this will be used for machine learning or to create a digital version or a synthetic, consent, control. I can say yes or no.
Yeah.
Or I can say, I don't want to be a part of that project, or I do want to be a part of that project. Compensation. I need to be paid every time my voice is used, not just a one-time buyout. A one-time buyout is a surefire way to not work in this industry anymore. We need exclusivity, clearly denoted exclusivity. If my digital voice is going to be used for a Honda ad, my real life voice is no longer viable for Toyota or Ford or Chevy or Dodge or anything else, right? But if I'm not being paid for that and they're using it on a national commercial, I've lost all this other potential for income, right? Safe storage and tracking. We need to know, number one, that it's being stored to the safest possible standards. And if the company that has made the digital version of me is sold, does the buying company then just get my voice? And what are they going to do with it? Or do they then have to renegotiate a contract with me in order to get my voice, which is what we would like to see happen.
So you're working with a lot of attorneys?
Yes, we are working with attorneys. We've been talking with various lawmakers. We've been talking with, you know, certain government offices to try and see certain legislation happen. We've been talking a lot with SAG-AFTRA and sharing every piece of information we have with them. They've been great. We've been talking with Equity in the UK.
Equity is the actors, on-screen actors union?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
they're the
the
SAG-AFTRA
UK.
equivalent,
Okay.
basically, in the UK. Tim has been working with a coalition of 16 nations, from Kenya to France to Spain and South America, various South American countries, and everywhere in between. I mean, it's a global threat. It's a global issue. And so we have to figure out how we hold our ground until the laws can catch up. So
That's a big project to take.
it's been so much. I haven't slept in like a year.
Oh no.
I'm so tired.
I mean, you do have a very busy plate. How do you make time for self-care and filling your creative cup?
What's self-care? No, I have a very supportive partner. I have the most amazing friends. I'm very, very lucky. I'm really, really lucky with the people I've surrounded myself with. So that helps a lot.
So you've had so many dreams come true at this point. What's next for Cissy Jones?
Oh God. What's next for me? I want to do this until I die. I do. I love this job. It's so weird and funny and odd and different, and I love it with my entire soul. I've started traveling again, which has just been amazing. I've missed it so much.
Where have you been?
I just got back from an incredible trip to London and Ireland. I completely fell in love with Ireland. Going to Hawaii Comic-Con in August.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to a convention in Chicago. Went to New York last year. It's just yes, all the travel. I love the travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so are there any particular aspects of any characters or roles that you hope to voice someday, or?
All of them.
All of
Sure.
them.
You know, the thing I started really, really wanting in like 2016, and then the pandemic really shut that down, was more women in trailers. And so we share a manager. We both see the auditions and how pre-pandemic.
Little Mermaid went to a man. Little Mermaid.
Little Mermaid.
Little Mermaid.
You know, it's pre-pandemic. I was seeing at least the option for having women on trailer reads, and now it's just gone. It's just gone. I mean, every now and then
like
we'll
TV
get,
TV stuff or whatever.
Yeah. But I would love to see more women there. The guys have had a good run. They've done very well. They've made a lot of money, and now it's our turn.
3 of them have.
Yeah, right?
7 of them have made a lot of money.
All 7 of them.
Yeah, that's so fun. Well, it's been lovely chatting with you today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're so welcome.
This has been so lovely. I love this space.
Thank you. No, but thank you so much for coming, Cissy, and thank you for everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week on Alicyn's Wonderland. Bye.